Hello and welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. If you're like us, you might spend some time doing paid work that's adjacent to your creative work, but not exactly the same. We found that a few skills can come in very handy. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, Pat.
Yes, James.
So I've been thinking,
Uh-huh.
it takes a lot to build a creative adjacent career, right?
Yeah.
And to sustain it. It's not an easy to do. Something that we and many other people have managed to, make happen for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about what are the skills that you have to learn? What are the things that you have to do to build a stable, creative, adjacent career? Came up with this list, and it goes risk, commit, fund, fail and learn fast, continual growth, organize, and adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking, should we just go through each one and just sort of say what we think, what we've learned?
Yeah, I think since this is a case study segment, we should actually give an example for each one. A very short example, because we don't want to bend people's ears about our shit, but any more than we normally do. But yeah, you start.
Well, the whole thing is a risk, right? Because you're operating without much of a safety net, unless you're somebody who comes with a pretty big safety net. So you have to be able to, go to bed and sleep each night and wake up and be willing to do whatever it is that you need to do to move the ball forward. And you need to be able to say yes to projects that may be stretching what you believe is your skill set. You need to be able to believe that you can do things.
Yeah. Okay. So since we're doing case study, here's my example. The first gig I got as an editor was, I think in 2010. I was still in my MFA program and close to finishing it. But anyway, somebody asked me to edit their memoir out of left field, and I had a 1-hour phone call with them. I didn't intend it to be an hour. I thought it would be 10 minutes because I'd never talked with a writer before about their book, except like writer friends of mine that I'd given feedback to. And so the risk there was that I didn't know a lot about the memoir form, and I had the potential to give them bad advice. And I took the gig anyway. And I didn't know him personally, but I got to know him really well. He's still a client. He writes nonfiction now, like more hard nonfiction. But that was a risk. I could have said, you know what? No, I don't want to work on your book, and just waited to see if I could get something more in my then field of expertise, which was fiction.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I've learned very quickly is if you're waiting for the perfect and the safe, you're nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so commit or commitment.
Yeah. You want to go first?
Yeah. So for me, you can't really do this with kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
No.
Right. If you're going to edit an entire book or if you're going to write an entire book as a ghostwriter, you've got to be committed to that because you owe it to that client, that other person. They deserve your full attention.
Yeah.
And it's also not going to work if you're trying to really basically be two things at once.
Yeah.
Right. So you've just got to, I understand that there's a little bit of a building process where maybe you have kind of your quote unquote day job and you're trying to get your creative adjacent work to become the day job. So there's a little bit of that transition period, but the only way you get through that transition period is at one point you have to take the risk of committing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Agreed. I would say, I fully committed when I rented office space and traded an edit for website work and also for teaching on how to do my own website. So I didn't have to rely on somebody else. So that was a risk because I didn't really have the money. If I didn't have the rent for the office by the end of the month and it was low, I went on Craigslist and took up typing jobs and whatnot until I had the money to pay the rent. I never wanted to dip into the family income to pay for my side gig because I was building it.
Okay. And that actually comes to the next one, fund.
Yeah, right.
And so for me, fund It's there are two pieces. You have to be able to earn enough money to keep everything going that you
Yeah.
need to keep going, right?
Yeah.
Family,
Yeah.
kids, all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
like you, there's definitely been times, it's been a while, thank God, but there are times where I've had to go get a job in a restaurant because it's a skill that I have and own. And when you're cooking, you work nights or
Yeah.
at least late afternoon, so you have the morning period to continue with the other work. But the other thing too is you have to be able to understand what it's going to take for you to do a project and the value of
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Because if you're charging far less than what that's worth, then you're not ever going to be able to make enough money to be sustainable. And
Yeah.
that's the whole thing is financial sustainability is critical.
Yeah. I think, yes, if you're not financially sustainable, you're just not in business.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to run out of money in any sole proprietorship, or if you're an LLC, it doesn't take any time at all to run out of money if you're not bringing it
Mhm.
in. So I do have to say that my first 3 to 5 years, I lowballed and took on high volume. And I have a large work capacity.
Mhm.
Like just as a person. So that worked for me. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody because you don't want to burn
Yeah.
out. But it is, there's a bunch of ways to manage funding. I also was not the sole breadwinner. If you are in a household with somebody who also makes money, then you share the living expenses. If you're paying for everything on your own, like say in your circumstance, you were a single parent for years, then it's an extra pressure for sure. But I still never wanted to go in the red on the business and have to pull money out of the family. I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's not healthy, right? It's not sustainable.
No, well, that you grow a certain dependence on that, and
You can,
that
yeah. Yeah.
that's when things can fall apart. And so
Uh,
then that brings us to fail and learn fast.
yeah. I don't like that terminology. I just think of it
Mhm.
as learn by doing.
Right.
Because learn by doing encompasses failure, success, everything, every experience you're going to have. You learn it by doing, and there's nobody's 100% successful all the time at everything. So the mistakes that you make or the stuff you kind of, so, quote unquote, fail at, um, your clients
Mhm.
might not notice you've failed. Like I consider one of my biggest failures, what do I call it? Like toxic overperforming to the point where I got pneumonia. I was working so hard on so many
Uh-huh.
projects. And that was 10 years. That was probably about 6 years after I started my business. So, that's a type of failure for me that no client noticed.
I like the word fast in there because that's one of the ways that clients don't notice. But there's also this piece where you have to accept that there are going to come times where you make mistakes,
Yeah,
something doesn't work, and fail just as the broad term for shit going wrong or
yeah,
tits up or however you want to phrase it.
yeah.
And you've got to accept that's
Hmm.
going to happen, and you've got to also understand how am I going to deal with it when it happens so
Yeah.
that the client doesn't notice, so I can get my feet back underneath me as quickly as possible and critically learn the lesson I'm supposed to learn and carry it forward
Yeah.
so that you don't have that kind of issue again.
Yeah. That makes
And
sense.
then that carrying forward brings us into continual growth.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for me, what that is, you have to constantly build your skills. Like there is
Yeah.
never a point where you're good enough.
Yeah.
You should always feel like you're struggling to get better. There's always somebody that's better than you. And professional skills, not just acquiring clients and how you speak to clients and all that kind of stuff, but just being a writer, editor.
Hmm.
You know, learning constantly learning.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And so for me, that looked like, so I've been in the business from, I guess, about 15, 16 years. First 5 years, I basically taught myself how to developmentally edit by modeling what I gave my clients on the feedback I received from my MFA program advisors and the entire gamut of information I'd picked up over the last 20 years of writing at that point. And then what it's begun to look like is 5 years of learning, and then the next 5 years of getting really good at it, and then the next 5 years of teaching it to other people is what I've been doing for the last 5 years. And I expect, and segueing more into coaching and sort of
Mhm.
other streams of income, but the point of it is that you can only do these higher level things like teach your craft to other people by learning it so well yourself that you have a lot of credibility.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I find in our space there's a lot of people trying to get started who project more experience than they actually own.
Oh, for
And
sure. Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that's something you also don't want to do, but you overcome that by continually growing.
Yeah.
Then that comes into organize.
Hmm.
And of the two of us, I give you plaudits for being the organized person. Not that I'm disorganized, but
Yeah.
you really do put a lot of effort into having solid structures and being an organized person in how you do what you do.
Well, thank you. I mean, I do it because I don't want to be stressed out. I don't want to spend half my day looking for shit and then have a very small period of time in which to perform the actual work I'm being paid to do. So
Mhm.
organization to me is more of it's like a stopgap against stress and anxiety. Like I find it's not because I'm organized by nature, although I might be. It's because I want to have my all of my attention on the actual work and not on bits and pieces that are getting in my way because I didn't spend the 10 minutes it takes to think about them.
Mhm.
And so also part of organization in my world is zooming out,
Mm.
like zooming out enough to know, is this an important thing that I should be spending this much time on? Or is this
Mm.
just another little cog in the machine and it gets a certain amount of time and no more, no less? So there's a certain ruthlessness about organization.
Mhm. And so my little story on this, I am very highly organized in terms of my process as a ghostwriter. And I
Hmm.
have what I call my framework. I give it to everybody who I'm going to work with. And it lays out how it should work,
Yeah.
right? And the whole point of it is getting to a place before you start writing where you share the client's vision.
Yeah.
So there's no space between you. And the reason why I do that and learned that is carrying a lesson forward where I worked collaboratively, but also for another ghostwriter on a project. And they didn't do that. They
Mm.
rushed,
Yeah.
sort of a very ADHD way of going about things. And so it got to the point where I didn't really know what we were doing. The client was getting stuff through this isn't what I was asking for. And this person is racing around. And I said, you know what? This needs a process.
Yeah.
This organization.
Yeah.
And so I've never had that problem again, which has been nice.
That's great.
Um,
Yeah.
and then the last one here, adapt.
I love that. That's probably my favorite. And that kind of wraps everything up. So if you don't pay attention to funding, you can't adapt. So, and if you're not organized, you can't adapt because you're too busy, spinning plates. And if you haven't committed, you can't adapt because you don't know what you were doing in the first place. If you haven't had continual learning, you can't adapt because you are not on top of your field's
Mhm.
learning opportunities, right? So, and also for me, the idea that I'm in a certain, I do a certain thing in the first 5 years, next 5 years is something else, and the next 5 years is teaching. That's a form of adaptation. You're adapting
Mhm.
what your place is in the realm that you operate in. For us, it's the publishing industry.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
how about
and
you?
yeah, I would say that and all creative domains, uh, the context will change, and
Yeah,
it sometimes it'll change, slowly. It evolves. Sometimes it changes very, very, very quickly.
yeah,
And so I have in parentheses in my notes here, listen. And what that means is you've really got to pay attention to your profession,
yeah,
right? And understanding things that are going to be disruptive to it,
yeah.
right? Big example right now is AI as a
Oh, for
technology.
sure. Yeah, that's what popped into my mind too. Yeah,
So, but the other things are shifts in how people market, for example,
yeah,
right? So in ghostwriting, it went from what is your level of expertise and do you have the right samples to just simply, do you have a bestseller?
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're outside. If you do, you're inside. And so you've got to adapt when these kinds of changes happen that take you from the inside and put you on the outside, which will happen. You've got to figure out how you're going to adapt to get back to where you once were, or to push further ahead.
Yeah. And I can give an example of adapting. So the American administration changed in whatever fucking year that was. Was it 2025? I don't know.
January 20.
And the country's new leader immediately made it very difficult to be part of American organizations for somebody who isn't American to build, to do all kinds of things. I mean, not particularly for me because I'm a specialist and I work with people around the world, but so part of that adaptation is looking at other countries to from which to get clients in because Canada is not that big, right? There's not that huge of a population. It's maybe 40 million. So working with people in the UK, Australia, other countries where English is the first language, where people write in English generally, and joining those associations, taking my money out of interaction with American organizations that are either dying, have lost all their funding, are subject to political pressure, all that stuff. Is a form of adapting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this literally happened to you, but I could imagine somebody who is depending on a grant that they had, were going to receive from, National Endowment for the Arts or National Endowment for the Humanities here in the US, and losing that. And all of a sudden that whole gig is gone.
Yeah.
Right. Or, they're like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so being able to listen, read the tea leaves, think ahead, those kinds of things.
And we could think of that as gathering context, like my favorite essayist Henrik Carlson wrote about.
It's been a while since we mentioned Henrik.
Yeah, swim around in the context. Like, don't ignore that because you're going to get caught flat-footed if you ignore context.
Yeah, do your best to get to professional associations, organization, any place where you can go and listen.
Yeah. Is industry rags like Publishers Weekly, that kind of stuff too.
Yep. Jane Friedman, big fans of hers. So there's lots of places where you can go. But okay, so that's our list. Building a sustainable, creative, adjacent career.
Yeah.
To us, there's probably more to add to the list, but for right now, risk, commit, fund, fail and learn fast, continual growth, organize, adapt, /listen.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
All right. Do we have a motion on the floor to accept the list?
Accept the list. Move that we accept. Do we have a seconder? Is that the word?
I second. I third. And I'm going to have some fourths too. It was pretty good.
Okay. Excellent. Chin chin. Thanks so much for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Hope you have a great creative week.